First off, thanks everyone for coming today. I really appreciate you guys coming and participating in this. My name is Rohit Patel, and I'm one of the owners of Prema Senior Living. And this is our first of hopefully many speaker series. And just quickly give you guys a background of why we're doing this and how we even got here. Myself and my business partner Dominic, we've been in the senior living business now for over 8 years. And we've learned a lot, especially through this industry. And one thing we noticed was that this product is just not available at all to the Indian community. It's not something that has ever been marketed, ever been made available, and it's not something that I think the Indian community's ever seriously considered. And we started this project about 7 or 8 months ago, and through that, we've heard a lot of feedback of what people were asking for, what concerns they had. And that's why we wanted to do a speaker series like this to help address what are the most common questions that people have as they age, not only for Indians, but for all people. But specifically, what are some of the considerations you have to keep in mind? What are the different products that are available to help take care of seniors? How do you help to pay for them? So, in that spirit, we started reaching out to industry partners, and we're very fortunate that we have this awesome group of people here today that volunteer their time and their evening to come and share information and speak with us. I'll do a quick introduction for who we have here today. You have Dr. just at the end there, we have Dr. Sorry, Dr. Desai, who is who's a man of many accomplishments. He's a geriatric physician that has been in Atlanta for an extremely long time. And I know a lot of the Indian community here is very familiar with his work. And he's going to be a great resource for any questions about aging and, of course, geriatric care. So we also have Nisha Karnani, who's an immigration attorney, and her specialty has been immigration law for over 20 years, and she's been helping a lot of seniors adjust to coming here, getting the correct immigration status, and also applying for the correct healthcare benefits. And then we also have Rajesh and Pari Jyoti. Jyotishi. Rajesh is a finance professional who's experienced in all sorts of financial management, and he's here with his wife Hari, who's on the insurance side. Both of them specialize in assisting seniors navigate the financial world of managing their senior care. One thing that I think doesn't get talked about enough in the industry is how people will afford their senior care as they get older. People are living longer, cost of care is going up, and not many people are considering how they budget for those things, how they save for them, and what sort of products are available to them as they age. No problem. No problem. So really quickly, I just want to introduce Prema Senior Living, and I'll talk a little bit about what assisted living is, what we do here, and then I'll turn it over to the panel and then go one by one and kind of go through each of their specialties. So just at a high level, there's a lot of confusion over what's available in the market, and I think we can break it down into really three different products. You have your independent living, you have assisted living and memory care, which is what we do here, and then you have your nursing home facilities. And that's the wide range of spectrum of care that's available to people as they age. Now, at the very beginning of that spectrum is independent living, and for that, you think about something like an age restricted community, a 55 plus type of community, where the residents there are fairly active. The amenities and the resources that they have there are built for fairly active seniors. So you see that those homes and units will have full kitchens. People are cooking their own food. They're typically driving their own cars. There'll be amenities like pools and tennis courts and things that you have for an active adult lifestyle. The next stage to that is assisted living and memory care, which is what we do here. And then the following stage would be like something like a nursing home. And at the high end, a nursing home is something that's appropriate for someone that requires full time medical supervision. If you're in that stage where you require full time monitoring, you need a physician or nurse on staff, you're better suited for a skilled nursing facility. And then everything in between that is where we fall in the assisted living and memory care side. The best way to think of it is assisted living and memory care is for those people that want to maintain their independence, but they need assistance with their ADLs. And your ADLs are your activities of daily living. So this can be anything related to mobility assistance, anything related to cognitive assistance. Anywhere in that spectrum, assisted living could be an appropriate product for you. And the services are designed to be customizable for as much or little services as you need. So some people might require a high level of mobility and cognitive assistance. Some people might be on the low end of that spectrum, and they could use assisted living almost like an all-inclusive product, where your janitorial, your meals, your entertainment is taken care of. And as you need additional services, you add the services on as you require them. That's typically how assisted living works in the United States. And what we've been trying to focus on is how can we bring those exact same services to the Indian community, not by reinventing the wheel or creating a new product, but by simply customizing those services with some special other cultural considerations. If you look at how people traditionally access these things, it's usually through it could be through their primary care physicians, through their geriatric physicians, where people notice that either someone has a decline in their physical mobility or has a decline in their cognitive ability. So it's working with a lot of the practitioners out in our community, working with rehab facilities, and then of course working with families. Ultimately, this is a business where you're taking care of each other, and there's a lot of trust and back and forth that goes between families and residents and staff. But ultimately, the way we operate our community and the way that and the culture we're trying to put in place is this is a home for the residents. This is their house, and all the staff are here as guests taken care of. That's the mentality that we want to implement with that team here. Because ultimately, if you look at the design and how we built our communities, it's meant to be a home. It's not meant to be an institutional type place. It's not meant to have the feeling of institution. It's meant to have a home feeling where everybody is welcome, where family and friends can come at any time they please. They can stay overnight, and the residents can get all the services that they require. So that's just a quick high level overview. If there's more questions, we'll go through that. But I just want to give a chance for everybody to kind of introduce themselves and go through what they do.
Good evening. Now, ladies, sir. I've been in Norway's engineer like this in May for more than 40 plus years, and I've been part of both skilled facility, assisted facilities in this community as a medical director. So this is a my background, and I was very impressed with the way this has been outlined in physical facilities. So I'm going to take questions, I suppose, or you want me to say something about the KGB?
Yeah, sure. I think somebody. Okay. Okay. So you put this in. See if we can put the volume in here. See if that helps the volume. I think one thing that would be helpful is if you start by talking about some of the early signs of what to look for when something like this might be appropriate, or what are some of the things that people should be considering as they age, like some of those early warning signs and things to look for.
So, in general, as you know, the age is becoming more, people are living longer, and so we really have a large 65 plus community growing over a period of time. And particularly in Gune, where type of our community where there are resources of hospitals and shopping and other places, I think it's a very attractive for people to come on this side. What Rohit mentioned is that somewhere in our life cycle, depending on what medical background we have, we will find that we are not being able to do things we used to do. Primarily, it's all related to whether it's mental or physical. I'm sure you have heard a lot about dementia or cognitive dysfunction, where people start having problems with memory and they cannot function because they forget things that they want to do. They need guidance, and sometimes they lead to some risk at home when a child is born or they have forgotten to keep the door closed. So at this stage, the family starts recognizing that my parents or my kind of burden needs extra care. They may not be, it may not be very practical for them to be around 24 hours with them, and things can go wrong at any moment. People they may fall or they may not drink there's nutrition, hydration, all that at home. So we have to start saying, what is my long-term concern? How can I provide a safe environment where they are well taken care of? Rohit mentioned several times, and I feel strongly about it, that the home will never be replaced. But the facility or place that you want to stay should be like a home. And the environment should be such warm and welcoming so that they feel part of the people they are staying with. They should have good nutrition, good activities, and access to other outdoor activities also. So, cognitive or dementia is one of the major factors to consider in this type of long term care, where you start thinking ahead before it becomes crisis and you do not able to find the right place. The other side, the physical side, is a little bit different for different age group. Some folks have neurological problem, Parkinson's disease, stroke, where they need more care, so they may have to have certain assistance in their daily living. And they still need to be active, they're mentally alert, oriented, and they want to be incorporated in the community. Some of the others are like heart failure, where their ability to walk too far may be a problem. So there are several considerations for one to start planning ahead, particularly family, to say that if I'm not able to serve them or take care of them, where would I go? And I think I would highly urge uh, them and our community leaders to promote this whole concept that it is okay, it is not unusual for patients or family member to go, and then they can have less bit from their daily work. They can still come here, enjoy their company, but in their heart they know they'll be taken care of. So I think that is very important.
So I'm Nisha Karnani. I'm an immigration attorney. I help a lot of families sponsor their parents for green cards. And I was just telling Marsha, this is a really new space. And when someone calls me and says, I want to sponsor my parents for a green card, I always tell them, have you had a conversation about if that's what they want? Because I had many families who sponsored their parents. They came here and they weren't happy. They didn't feel community or having interaction that they were hoping for. Then they had to have a home. And so sometimes we end up switching the green card for a visitor visa. um, but many times there the need is to be here because the need for family support here. And there's also challenges around getting some care but not full care. So I'm really happy to be here and happy to know about this space because I have a lot of clients who should be thinking about this. I think where I can help is kind of explain that when families come and when they sponsor their parents, especially in this immigration environment, there's some important things to know. So when you have a green card, you do need to mostly be in the US to keep that green card. And so in the past, a lot of people would come every 6 months for a short period of time. And the thought was that that would keep you your green card. But what's happening lately is there's some folks who are not spending enough time here because they miss home. So they come home for longer. And then they're sometimes getting hassles when they come back. And that's what we're saying to thank your family, your other family members are going to get a lot of questioning and stress. So what I would add is that if you're considering sponsoring a family member and think later in life they might need support, things like this is a really great resource. Having a conversation because sometimes you can just have your family come visit initially. And then the other thing I would say is, I tell people now you have a green card. Once you've had your green card 5 years, you can usually apply for US citizenship. And also to try to be in the US 9 months out of the year, usually is what will be safer for you. And then count your days when you're eligible for citizenship. So usually about 5 years if you've had your green card. That's often when some of the benefits kick into that we'll be talking about. So those are things just to keep in mind. for our parents, for our family members with immigration. The other thing to keep in mind is that for citizenship, there's an English test and a government and history test. And there are some exceptions or waivers available to longtime green card holders for that. So if somebody has memory care issues or challenges learning, they might get exceptions to that. And then having US citizenship can be helpful for certain benefits as well. So I'm available as a resource if any of you guys have family members who you're worried they're not spending enough time here, or if you are thinking about citizenship. The other thing I just tell you is if you do have family members who are here, don't really want to meet them that much, there is something called a reentry program. Yeah. Oh yes, is that better? Okay. Much better. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, all right. All right. So essentially, if you do have a green card or your family members have a green card and they don't want to stay here too long now, they might later. To preserve their green card, what we do is we file for something called the re-entry permit that lets them stay out for 2 year periods at a time or longer without getting hassled at the immigration checkpoint. So just to recap, because I think I wasn't speaking loud enough, if you're thinking about filing for a green card for your family member, definitely talk to an immigration attorney about the pros and cons of a visitor versus a green card. Remember that after about 5 years, you might be eligible for citizenship. It might be eligible for some exceptions to the testing requirements. And just be careful about spending enough time in the US or get to overnight.
One question for you is that we've had in the past that some of our potential residents have asked us, do you have to be a U.S. citizen to live in an assisted living community?
No, there's no immigration for private business. And yes, there's a lot of misinformation and constant changes about immigration. So I'm happy to be a resource to anybody. If you guys have folks who have question, you can text them to me. And anything else you wanted to touch
Actually, that's great. That's a question for me.
on? You're first.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rajesh Jyotishi, and this is my buddy. We are in the insurance and financial services side. So my wife Buddy takes care of all of our clients who need Medicare, and I take care of all the other stuff, whether it be Obamacare or finding for long-term care insurance, life insurance, and even investments as well. We've been doing this for about 32, 33 years. And then about 10, 15 years ago, I wrote a book called The Money Talk, which is on the table there, which I brought us with 3 giveaway for you guys. And during that time, I did a survey just by clients and friends, say, hey, how many of you have done any long-term care plan? And not surprisingly, less than 2% of the people in our community did any form of long-term care plan. So I've been trying to educate people on the different ways that you can pay for long-term care, as well as, a few years ago, I even got my designation as a certified Medicaid planner. Not because I wanted to do Medicaid planning, I just wanted the knowledge behind it. And I'm telling you, it is really a complex field. That's why most of the time older law attorneys specialize in um, that type of Medicaid planning type of things. But what I would say is this: well, first of all, I do want to share that my uncle stayed in Prema a few months ago, and unfortunately, he passed away here. And but he really, really enjoyed the time that he was here. The staff was just wonderful. He really took very good care of him. I just want to, extend my gratitude to you guys. So, but the other thing is, like Dr. J was saying that you're all living longer. When I was taking my certified senior advisor program, the instructor said the fastest growing segment of our population right now are centurions, people over age 100. And you think, is that possible? Well, nowadays with advances in medicine, with AI coming in, I think it definitely is possible. I think more and more people will be living longer. I mean, you might remember Ronald Reagan, who got Alzheimer's in the 70s, while he was 70, and he lived up to 90. So we do have to be able to plan in a way. So suppose you do need some type of long-term care for an extended period of time. Now, fortunately, the insurance industry has really advanced significantly over the last several decades. Traditionally, we just had long-term care insurance, which is like medical insurance. And unfortunately, when it's a medical insurance, the rates are not guaranteed and can go up every year. But fortunately, the newer policies that are coming out allow you to buy life insurance with long-term care. So what that means is that if you don't need the long-term care benefits, which is basically what we're hoping for, if that benefit goes on to your family's tax-free. There are also certain policies out there now called asset-based policies where, we had a client a few years ago that said, I just had $200,000 saved aside for long-term care needs for me and my wife. So would it be repositioned that into this policy, and instead of 200,000, you have $450,000 from the long-term care benefits per person with an unlimited lifetime benefit? I said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. It was a no-brainer. If they don't use it, the death benefit still goes to the kids tax-free. So these are the type of products that are out there. But one of the things that, share on long-term care policies, there are two types of payment methods. One is the reimbursement method, meaning like every month you get a bill, whether from assisted living, nursing home, home health care, and you have to submit it to the insurance company to get reimbursed for that payment. But there are newer policies out there that basically indemnity policies that you say, suppose you're entitled to say $5,000 per month. As long as the doctor can say that yes, you're eligible, you have what's the thing about that? You have two or more daily living activities, whether it's eating, bathing, going to the restroom, transferring some continents. If you cannot do two or more of those activities, you're eligible for this benefit. And when they're giving it the money to you in cash, that can be used to pay for a family member who can be taking care of you, can be paid for assisted living, like say Prema, for example. And some of these policies also allow international benefits too. So suppose you do want to go back to India and take care over there. It is possible with those types of policies. So the most important thing to keep in mind is that if you're doing the long-term care type of planning, think of these type of things. You want something that has a little bit more flexibility built into it, and obviously affordability is going to be a very, very big key. Now, if you feel like insurance is not affordable and you think that Medicaid might be the route you might have to take, there are quite a few rules you do have to be aware of because Medicaid rules vary from state to state as well too. And there's a 5-year look back in Medicaid for gifts that are given to people. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, I just transfer what I have to my kids, and then I'll apply for Medicaid." Well, unfortunately, they will ask for all your bank statements and everything to see the transfer is done, and that can make you ineligible for Medicaid. And Medicaid fraud is also a pretty serious thing too. So we do want to be very, very mindful of those kind of things. But once again, if you're planning in advance, and if you think Medicaid is around, I would suggest do meet with like elder law attorneys and plan out your strategy so that Medicaid is an option. But with that said, I will tell you that before long, people would move into Prema, they moved into some rehab facility in Decatur. It was heartbreaking because when you're in a facility like that, which primarily caters to Medicaid patients, you don't get a lot of choice. When you go on a vacation, do you want to share a room with somebody or you want to private room? So that is the type of care that you really have to keep in mind for. And we all, in our community, we take care of our kids. We put them through college, help them buy their house, buy their cars and everything. Why not spend a little bit extra money and make sure that we can, live and die in. So that, if you have any questions, you're going to have the answer. I'll pass on.
Yeah, I just have a quick question just to follow up with you on that. So, How do you think people should plan, given where senior living, where the cost of senior living is today, and we know how expensive it's getting? How do you think someone that's maybe planning for 10 or 15 years down the road, how do they plan for what that expense might look like? How do they know, given how expensive it's getting over the years, do you have any information that can help them determine, hey, if this is what the expense of senior living looks like today, this is what it might look like in 10 years or 20 years, and ultimately helping them plan for that.
Sure. That is actually a great question. Because right now, average cost of long-term care is about 70,000 to 120,000 per year, depending on what part of the country you're in. It also depends on what type of care you need. I mean, obviously, nursing home is a lot more expensive than assisted living, and assisted living sometimes can be more expensive than home health when you're in so forth. So a lot of the insurance policies that kind of work right now come with like inflation protection riders, where you can choose 3%, 4%, 5%, 6, 7%, so that the benefits increase each year to keep up with inflation. Now, one thing I will also tell you is that what I tell my clients is that you may not be able to, make all of your expenses done with your insurance policies, and you might have to subsidize it in some ways. Which is fine too, because most people have some savings with the retirement, social security, and family members that can help out with too. Just to give you a quick example, with Pat's mom, he was getting almost $3,000 per month with Social Security, and he had maybe, I don't know, 400,000, savings, retirement, and everything else. So if he was taking money out of that along with the Social Security income, a facility like Prema was very affordable, especially if you needed more. He had, us help out as well too. So always think in the context, so you may not be able to fill 100% of the cost of your long-term care costs, but you can always subsidize it, right? So just keep that in mind too. Yes. I had one question online. That question was about any considerations from like a tax perspective if you're bringing your parents over from India and you want to use, also Indian parents might have in India and transfer over to the U.S. I know that's a little bit more of a tax question, but do you have any insight on that at all in terms of any kind of considerations for that population or what you would do in that situation? Well, I mean, if you're talking about gifts, I mean, the gift limits are, incredibly high now. I mean, with the new big, beautiful bill, the state tax exemptions are like over 15 million. I don't remember what the gift amount is, but it is also in millions. So if you want to transfer or give money to your parents, yes, you can do that. But I don't know what the benefits of that one mean. Would it be more so wanting to transfer parents off in India to the US? So, the cost, they need. So, yeah. No, I don't foresee any problems. Just know that once the money is transferred into the parent's name and then transferred into the children's name, that becomes a transfer, right? So it would once again be subject to the 5-year look back. Now, one of the other areas that we do help a lot of seniors is in the health insurance. A lot of our community have parents coming over age 65. So we help them get Obamacare. Obamacare, there's three main requirements. One is that you have to be a legal resident. That green card is fine, work permit is fine. Number two is that you have to have some minimum income here in Georgia. For a single person, looking about 16,000 per year, or a couple about 21,000 per year. Number three is they have to file their own tax return and cannot be dependent on somebody else's return. So long as we can meet those three requirements, yes, we can have a policy sometimes with a zero deductible, sometimes even a zero premium too. So a lot of these things I am expecting to change as we move along, especially with a lot of the new rules that are coming into place. But these are the rules right now, and yeah, we know literally thousands of people. So go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, that's a great question. So the first thing is to know that there are usually two routes to get a green card. One is to file the process here in the U.S. and one part of the process in the U.S. and part abroad. So the documents are a little bit different. It brings up a separate point where in this environment it's risky to have your family come here as a visitor and then file for the green card. That used to not be so risky. It relates to your intent when you fly over as a visitor. You're not supposed to have in your head, I'm going to file for my green card, I'm going to file for my green card. If your intent changed after being here for 90 days and you had a meeting and you talk to your family and said, okay, mom, dad, we want you to do that. And if you could show the intent changed, then you would be okay. So what that means is in this administration, the green card process is probably going to take a year to 2 years to get them here. So just keep that in mind. If they're already here, definitely talk to an immigration attorney before you file anything here. So that's one thing. The documents are actually not too complicated. So typically you need a birth certificate from the child to prove that it's their parent. So it's usually easy to get. Um, the birth certificate of the parent can be challenging because let's say if you're a citizen of India and you were born before 1970, you probably don't have a birth certificate, but there are alternative documents that are acceptable. So usually it's your schooling records. The consulate will sometimes give you a certificate showing that your birth certificate is not available. And then other times you'll get an affidavit from a family member saying, I know that this person was born at this time and place, was their big brother, that kind of thing. So those the documents to prove the relationship. And then there are some financial documents. So the petitioner, who are usually the adult U.S. citizen child who is sponsoring their parents, they do need to prove that they have enough income in the family that their family member will not need government benefits. So that usually practically means tax returns, pay stubs, employment letter, just to show there's enough income. You have to show that you have 125% of the poverty level, which is pretty low. So for most families, you don't really have challenges there. Oh, and then there's an interview at the consulate and they ask for updated taxes. So it's actually the documents, it's not too bad. There's not you don't have to show a large amount of money. I think there was a question before we were talking about transferring the money is not going to finish the green card at all. That's not going to be a problem. The main thing is to show that the family member sponsoring has enough income to sponsor. So we usually don't run into issues there.
Good.
Desai, so thankful that that's a good night. How do you deal with the cultural stigma of perhaps hanging out as a parents that are getting older, they kind of taking it off. And it's that cultural side of it saying you're supposed to take care of them in house rather than sending them off to a assisted living facility. So that question is kind of loaded because culture burn is a big, somewhat encompassing lot of things. We came here 50 plus years back and things have evolved. So my mindset is still different than I used to be. Of course, being a physician in facility is a different world. But for an average family who has always looked back at Indian customs and the only answer to that is honestly, they have to be educated by this type of seminar. That is one. Number two, they have to physically visit and understand what is available because I think the whole idea that a dreaded is, they'll be left alone or they will not have enough attention, and that can be easy. And I think third most important thing is that they will have time for themselves. And so they're not constantly into the mindset. And eventually it leads to a lot of neglect, if I may say so. And so it is better that they are better off taken care here and then they can visit. And I would highly recommend that they visit often so then they still be part of both staff here as well as their parents seeing them. Because one of the things that we should be all proud of is our family cultural values of taking care of parents has been consistently for generations. And so taking time, visiting them is very important. And as often as they can, that will be desirable. But the the thrust of your question is the cultural thing would take time. Your generation would have a better understanding and get this to the next level. But somewhere it has to start. And I think Prema seems to be the place to start.
Yeah,
Second that on that.
yeah. I just wanted to add to that too for another spot. So just to help answer your question, I think that sorry, I think that what we've seen is that dynamic has certainly existed historically. What we've also found is that ultimately, at the end of the day, both parents and kids, it seems to be they all want to maintain their independence ultimately, and the decision of wanting to put them in, not wanting to put them in. It might be a guilty decision, it might be an emotional decision, but ultimately, when I've spoken to parents and I've asked them what they don't want to feel isolated living in their son or daughter's home when they used to be living at home and friends would come and have chai with them, have lunch with them. Now they're a guest in their daughter's house. They don't know when their friends will come. So ultimately, what we found is that people want to maintain their independence. And I went to a senior living conference in India last Christmas in Bangalore, and exactly as Dr. Desai is saying, the historical mentality of senior living in India has been it's only been done by nonprofits and by charity work. So if somebody is in senior living in India, it's a signal that they have been neglected, that nobody cares about them because they're in this nonprofit type setup. We have to help change that mentality that first of all, senior living is a very expensive product in the United States. And there's only a small percentage of people in this country that can even afford what senior living is. And it's a premium product that should have premium expectations. It's not a charity work. It's if you're in a position where you can afford this for your parents and you can afford the high level of services and the cost that it takes, it's a privilege to be in that position. Our job is to showcase why living in a community like this is ultimately better for families and better for the children, better for everyone. Because if we can do a better job, if we're selling premium services, then you should have premium expectations. And those expectations should be a happier, healthier loved one. It should be less stress on the children. It should be more hands off. It should be all of the things that you would expect out of that service without the guilt and neglect factor that goes in. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you. My name is Elias. And I'm happy say nothing of getting close, which is the announcement happened today because of Medicaid not expansion issues. So the number is 37 nursing homes getting close. So for a middle class family, work and looking at your all these professional physician career and geriatrics, what kind of facilities you suggest for 65 plus people in Georgia or in Metro Atlanta? Thank you. So Chetan, that is in your individual place. Because over the world, as I mentioned initially, women is improving about structures like medical. Are they completely healthy and they have an apartment of their own and drive? That is one option. On the other hand, if they already started having cognitive disorders and forgetfulness, which requires them to be in some protective environment, that would be the second consideration. And the third would be physical, whereby, as I said, some of the medical diseases like the chronic lung disease, etc., where they want to be independent, but they need some assistance in a daily living. And that type of environment is also living. The word long term is somewhat misleading because I think in general, the assisted living could be long term, but it also has to be looked at how professional medical things will go. So one needs to start thinking about and what Guru is mentioning, which I think is very critical. most parents wants to be independent. They want to be in charge of their life and daily living. So if we can provide them that feeling that they can go to their apartment, they can do what they need to do, and yet if they come out of apartment, there is a environment that they can look up to and say, solve this problem that I need to take care of. So I think that is where the answer is. But it is going to be very difficult time in next several years, I would imagine. The way Medicaid has been slowly, going away, a lot of family will feel very stressful. And I think that brings to this whole financial issue as an Indian community in general, where that is supposed to be affluent. But a lot of people are going to have difficulty with how to manage parents. So my name is Rajesh, and I'm a part of the panel. But I also have a simple input here. I have a question for everybody here. Who's going is best qualified to answer it? And this is really regarding a very specific Medicare related issue that I went through uh, after my mom was after my mom got a citizenship. She was immediately eligible for Medicare because she was well over 65. But back at that time, we had no clue about all this. We were totally illiterate, what was available for her, what's not available for her. And so at that time, we just put her on one of those visitors insurance type of healthcare plans, which have an expensive premium, but at least you get something. And she stayed on it for a number of years. No. But being on the citizen, having become a citizen, though they told us that don't forget to get your voting card signed. Don't forget to apply for your passport. Nobody ever told us during the citizenship oath ceremony that, by the way, if you're above 65, you can also apply for Medicare. At least it did not happen during our visit. When I came to learn after a couple of years that, oh my goodness, she could have applied for this. Although she would not have gotten some kind of a cheap premium, but if you're willing to at least pay your way and you pay full price, then you're okay. Um, which was reasonably affordable at the time. But they then set up a fine. And so now what's happened with that, we're paying almost twice the amount of what the full cost is. And I've asked a lot of people, but I've got nowhere. Just been told that, nope, that fine once it's there forever. And you're kind of tied to it. Is that really so? Or is there a way to appeal this kind of thing? Or is there a process or some provision that, this silly thing of not having applied when you were 65 or within a 3-month range of that can be avoided? And my apologies for asking a very personal question about a specific financial issue.
No, no problem.
I'll take that.
Yeah, sure.
It's a very, very good and valid question because we as immigrants have a lot of situations like that. So once you get citizenship, yes, you can get Medicare, but Medicare Part A today costs $519, and Part B is $185. That is rock bottom. If people cannot afford it, please, if they don't have assets and resources, apply for Medicaid. Once you get Medicaid, those penalties go away. Government has started paying for Part A and B both because they figured being on Medicaid is much more expensive because then Medicare and Medicaid have to pick up all the expenses. But if you have your own Medicare, then it is up to insurance company because then you would be enrolled in a Medicare plan. So yes, there are pros and cons, and even Medicare is so very complicated. I have people, I didn't know I had to apply for Medicare.
I didn't know I have to apply for Part D, which is drug. And why should I be paying penalties? But that is how the law is written. It was written in 1965, and yes, there is not much awareness of it. But I'm glad we are having a panel like this to address those kind of situations.
Nisha, as far as like eligibility and the timing from the immigration standpoint, could you talk a little bit about that?
So I thought it was really fascinating that you said you get your citizenship based on you to vote, get your passports, and then talk about the Medicare and Medicaid eligibility. As an attorney, we don't do that because we get confused about who's eligible for what all the time. And so that's a really good reminder for me to connect to you guys because it's a constantly changing environment. But yes, once you're a U.S. citizen, there's benefit eligibilities that change. Like it just changed with the bill that just passed just now. And so once you're a citizen, you can look at the criteria and see if you meet those. So I wasn't aware actually of the timing requirements. I think the other thing I would say is that when you have a green card, there's timing requirements too that are a little bit complicated. And with immigration and with this area of law with elder care, things change constantly. So I tell people when my advice sometimes has a shelf life of milk because it changes. But to answer the question, there is once you're a U.S. citizen, and that's why a lot of folks want to apply for citizenship, but then there's various barriers. So looking into the exemption, because it's not that usually you have to have a very hard to rely for those.
Hard. And maybe I'm not sure who this is best for. Can we just kind of do an overview of what Medicare actually is used for and what types of services Medicaid might be used for and what types of services like a private insurance would be pay for?
Wow, that is a very, very loaded question. I have people coming into my office and say, "Oh, why do I have to pay for Part B? They think once you go into Medicare, everything is free." No, Medicare is much more expensive in this country than if you stay under 65. Um, would a facility like this would be covered? No, this is a different kind of a luxury benefit, a very well deserved benefit for all seniors. They work there all their lives and they deserve it. But this would definitely not be covered under Medicare. They have 100 days of skilled nursing facilities lifetime benefit that is covered. This is not considered skilled benefit. This is an assisted living. Here you have to be able to do your daily living activities yourself sometimes, not in memory care, of course, but Medicare does not cover that. Medicare does cover certain things, but not long term. This is considered long-term care.
So Medicare basically covers like what you said, skilled nursing care, long-term care is about custodial care, the daily living activities. And that's why Medicare does not cover most of the long-term care type of benefits. So
But with Medicaid, isn't it correct that there's an asset criteria? You cannot earn more than $2,000 or something like that. You know, what's $2,000 today, right? And because my mom also was receiving a pension, uh, what they call family pension in India, which is half the pension that my dad should have received, but still it's something. You have to disclose all that. And then since we sold the home in India, those assets also had been transferred because that was my mom's property, and so we transferred those financial assets over here. So question is that straight away rules her out, you know, in terms of any chance whatsoever of being eligible for Medicaid. And that's when Medicare paying the full amount for at least A, B, and D was the only way to go. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you're hearing the United States, so there are certain assets that are excluded when you're trying to apply for Medicaid. Your primary residence with a certain value of the house, certain amount of income is also allowed. If you're married, the income thresholds are a little bit more. So there are different ways that you can work around some of those type of things.
Yeah.
But it is an area that you would want to get an expertise of an elder law attorney to help you navigate it. Because there are certain things that you can even spend the money that you have to for your well-being, whether it be if you need to buy a car with or a van with wheelchair accessibility, if you need to modify your home with a handicap ramp or any other type of things. All of those things can be used. Your assets can be used to pay for those type of things. But yes, there are some. Yeah, it's not only income test but also asset test that is involved.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one thing that you want to be careful of, that was mentioned before, is that the Medicare or Medicaid fraud and applications is a serious thing. If you get an inheritance supply and they have green cards and they do something improper where the government wants to come after you, could be deportable. So it's really, really important to speak with the right experts about that. There's also a push for denaturalization. Probably won't apply very much because typically you have to, the applications and the benefit would have happened before. But just warn people that there's a lot more. Immigration is looking at tax records now. They didn't used to do that. They're looking at benefit applications. They didn't used to do that. And I've had a lot of people in the community sometimes feel like, well, how are they going to know you should, and so just be really, really careful because things that weren't really an issue or didn't come up before are coming up now. So I'm just mentioning for folks to be careful.
I had a client and her husband was on Medicaid and she says, I don't want Medicaid. My next door neighbor, Medicaid, sent her a bill of $106,000. And there was a lien on her house too. So yes, Medicare fraud is serious business and now they are paying attention.
That is part of the Medicaid recovery rules. So if you're on Medicaid and the state pays off a lot of benefits to you, they can come back even after you're passing if you have a certain amount of assets.
Do you guys have any questions? Anything else? Want to open it up? Jennifer, you look like you have a question.
No,
No,
I
just
don't think so. I think they're coming.
Good.
Can you tell something about your another facility? What is the difference between two facilities?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just do a quick story of the history of Prema. So we started in senior living about 8 years ago, and we built our first community in Covington, Georgia, which is an exact replica of this building. Actually, this is a replica of that building because that was done first. And we opened this one. That one opened in 2019. This one opened kind of the end of 2021. And they're essentially identical. They're both the exact same size, same design. 70% is assisted living, 30% is memory care. And we had a third party. Their name was Oak Senior Living. They were a manager that was helping us really learn the industry. They operated for us for over 5 years. And as those contracts rolled over, we took over operations ourselves. We renamed the community to Prema. And it's been 2 years in Ashton and now 1 year here.
What thing prompted you to go into this business rather than building a motel or opening a temple?
So it's interesting you say that because this senior living business there's a lot of overlap between senior living and hospitality from a business perspective and from a business structure. We have one large facility here. We have rooms that people stay in on a nightly, monthly basis. We have common areas with commercial kitchens. So we have courtyards. So the actual product itself from a business perspective is very similar. The big difference, of course, is that you're taking care of people here and people are living here, and there's the care aspect that isn't in hospitality. So I think I've met a lot of people in the Indian community that have been very successful as developers and they operate and own hotels, and they're all very interested in finding a way to get involved in this industry, but nobody wants to do the hardest part, which is operating. So I know there's many opportunities to go and expand and provide these services, not just for the Indian community, but for all different types of communities. But the operations is challenging, and it can often be a thankless position to work in senior living, but it takes a team that's dedicated for doing it for the right reasons. And if you're genuinely interested, and the good thing about doing this is that it's, myself and my business partner, we're both CPAs from Canada. We're both finance professionals that got involved in senior living as a way that, one, a great opportunity with where the demographics are going, but two, it's a business that we all feel great about, and everything we do is healthcare driven. We also have a medical practice. We owned a hospice at one point, but everything that we're involved in is healthcare driven, and this fell in that same vein. And just pivoting and offering an opportunity for Indian people to have the same services that other people in this country have had for decades has been something we've been wanting to do. And again, it's not reinventing the wheel, it's not creating something brand new. It's the same services that you find in communities all across the country. It's just basic considerations around food and entertainment and worship, really small basic tweaks. Otherwise, all of the services we provide here are no different than you'll find in any other top level assisted living community. Our amenities, our care, it's just never been considered for the Indian demographic before, because it's like when Steve Jobs built the first iPhone, he had to make it for us to know we needed something like that. Everyone thought it was insane the first time. So we almost have to build it and they will help. Sure. Yeah.
Thousands.
I would like to add one more thing in this facility. This case, so much used to my husband's uncle. He would call up his daughter and say, "Hey, today I paid Karen. Okay, I gotta go. Now it's bingo time." Just to hear a childlike happiness in his voice really gave us peace. The cook made some Indian food for him at 8 o'clock at night. Who does that? I don't think as a child I would be able to cook something so special for him. So the little joys that he got out of living here was it really gave us as family real peace. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to add one more thing. Prema, he was also in London because he lived in Florida, and he really wanted to go back to his home because that's where he felt most comfortable. Prema also offered him, 1 month trial, so they could stay where he stayed here for a month and until he felt comfortable before he signed on like a yearly contract. It's just unfortunate that he passed away shortly after that. So, but thank you once again.
Yeah.
That's a great job.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Sure. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I think we're gonna wrap it up. If anybody has questions, they'd like to come speak individually, please don't be shy. We're happy to answer anything. And just want to say thank you to everyone, especially our panelists here for coming. They have not, they've taken time out of their day and the evening to help us start this. And we hope that this is the first of many series that we can continue. But we really appreciate all of our panelists coming today and helping us answer questions.
Thank you very
Thank you.
Thank you.